Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to the CoTec Holdings Corp 2026 Business Update webinar. My name is Eugene Herkin, VP Finance at CoTec, and I'll be hosting today's session. Before we begin, a quick reminder that today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available on CoTec's website following the event. I would also note that certain statements made during today's presentation may constitute forward-looking information, which is subject to various risks and uncertainties, so please refer to CoTec's public filings for more details. Joining me today's webinar are Julian Treger, CoTec President, Chief Executive Officer and Director, and Bram Jonker, CoTec Chief Financial Officer. Julian will start us off with prepared remarks, including an update on the business, our current priorities, progress towards first revenue, and recent developments across key projects. Bram will then provide additional financial and capital allocation commentary to frame our execution priorities and balance sheet position. After Julian and Bram have shared their updates, I will return to moderate the Q&A portion of today's webinar, during which both Julian and Bram will be available to answer your questions. If you would like to answer or ask any questions at any point, please submit it through the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will address as many as time permits during the Q&A portion. With that, I will now hand over the line to Julian. Julian?
Thank you so much, Eugene, and thank you all for your time and interest in joining this update. We have been actually very hard at work on a number of fronts since we last spoke to you, and we're very pleased to be able to go through the progress we've been making since we had last an update together. But also we're very keen to hear your questions. So if you do have any questions at the end of the session, we'd be more than happy to answer those, and even after this session, if you want to contact us, we're there for you. I'd like to just start with a high-level overview, which is to say that when we started CoTec a couple of years ago, we were ahead of the time. We were ahead of the curve. I don't think people were focusing on the importance of the critical mineral supply chain in the West. And obviously, technology and recycling wasn't as important as it is today. So I think, our time is now, and we are seeing a lot of opportunities, and we continue to be very excited about the opportunity set we see before us, and the opportunity to really execute and scale a large business. We've created a lot of value already, but there's a lot more value to be created in the coming months and years. And we hope that you will stay with us for that journey. Just turning first, before we talk about the assets, to our technologies, I'm pleased to say that our technologies continue to scale and grow as we expected. There have been no disasters, nothing has fallen over, they're continuing to progress, and the technology portfolio is therefore increasing in value. But obviously the CoTec story now is about taking those technologies and applying them to assets. We have 3 assets, and we have the beginnings of CoTec Copper, which I will talk about. We will look at more technologies if they are synergistic with the ones we already have. But overall, we feel we have enough technologies to be getting on with, and the opportunity set that those technologies are providing, is enormous. So the focus is very much on scaling the assets and getting more assets as we grow the business. So with that, perhaps I could turn to running through the 3 principal assets and the progress that's been occurring there. Starting, of course, with Hypermag, which I think a lot of people are very interested in. We recently announced an update on Hypermag. We gave more detail on the scaling up timing for the first plant, ultimately getting to the 1,500 tons of production. But we also announced, which I think is quite exciting, that we're going to start in the first 6 months of next year producing finished magnets in the US. When we've analyzed the sort of flow sheet of magnet making, it's become apparent that the end process, which is the finishing, the making of magnets, is one where the West is particularly weak. There are very few magnet making machine companies. There's very little expertise. And we think that by starting with finishing magnets, which are produced by our sister companies in the UK and Germany, we'll be able to demonstrate not only differentiation on the front end of the process with our British technology using Spanish and German equipment to produce the magnet blocks, but we'll also be able to differentiate ourselves significantly on the back end by developing a US domestic magnet finishing capability. At the moment, a lot of the people who are successful in separating rare earths in North America are having to send their separated rare earth concentrates to Asia to get them finished. So we think that developing a finishing center of excellence in Dallas-Fort Worth next year will be a major asset for CoTec and Hypermax. So we're very excited about that. We are also searching now for a CEO for the operation in the US based in Dallas, as well as a CFO. And we have also been talking to a number of investment banks to assist us with the eventual listing, which we continue to view as occurring towards the end of next year when the Dallas plant is well under construction. The two plants in Europe are operating smoothly. Those two plants continue to ramp up. They continue to scale. They continue to provide samples to customers in Europe, but they're not at their nameplate capacity yet. And so it will take some time for that to occur. So with a much more favorable backdrop of the proven technology producing magnets and us already having finished a bunch of magnets in the US, we think that that would be an opportune time to list the business. But we are, advancing on acquiring the equipment necessary to start the plants, to do the finishing. We have orders with equipment makers in the US and Asia. And we are also stockpiling feedstock. With the scaled up ramp up that we've announced, we also believe that we already have sufficient plans for feedstock to cover the initial requirements. And we are also in actually very productive discussions now with a number of other feedstock providers. So we think that we will have in the coming months more than sufficient feedstock for the 1,500 tons that we ultimately will get to in Dallas-Fort Worth, but also we will start to get feedstock for the second plant. As you know, we've identified Nevada and South Carolina as the second and third plants, and work continues to advance on those two sites. And we will be making more announcements on that front in the months to come. So now that we've been clearer about the timetable for the ramp up, we are also going to be starting to engage with private equity firms and strategic investors who have indicated some interest in taking a minority stake in the at either the subsidiary level or at the hub level. And that process is kicking off this week or next week. And so we hope in the coming months and certainly by the end of the year to have some news on that, which will assist to answer the question as to how the funding of the hub build out will occur. But we also at the same stage are continuing to have productive conversations with a number of commercial banks and Exim in the US about providing the debt for the hubs as well as working capital funders and factorers for the working capital requirements of that hub. Bram, do you want to add to the section on Hypermag?
Yeah, maybe just very briefly, I can just add that things are going according to plan. With the new schedule, I think that also fits better with our rollout in general. So I think everything is positive from our perspective. We're hoping to have all of the building blocks in place over the coming months, the next sort of 4 to 5 months, where we have all the feedstock, all the necessary offtake in place, that will then unlock the financing for us so that we can just go full steam ahead. But in the meantime, like you've mentioned, we are taking all the necessary steps to make sure that we meet our targets. We've secured the facility. We have taken occupation of the facility. We are in the process of securing the long lead items. We already have a first piece of equipment that we expect will be arriving in the coming weeks in the US. So everything is going according to plan, and very happy with where we are at this point. Okay.
Okay, Thank you, Bram. Moving along then, I think on Lac Chenin, we did announce an update yesterday. So that information is in the market that we've managed to get to the critical grade of 67% iron ore. We continue to do environmental studies, and we expect early next year to start the bankable feasibility study. But just for information, the difference between a 66% and a 67% iron ore grade can be $3 to $4 per ton, and the projection is we'll be making around 500,000 tons at Lac Chenin. So that achieving that scale could produce $1.5 to $2 million extra dollars of revenue a year. And if you discount that at 10% or 8%, you're talking potentially $20 million US of extra value, which is significant relative to our current market cap. But what I wanted to move on to and focus on a little bit more is Magine, where we haven't made many announcements this year, though we are expecting to make further announcements in the next day or two, and then again in the next week or two. We've been hard at work at Magine after we announced our feasibility study, effectively trying to improve on that study. That study, as you may recall, showed an NPV pre-tax for the blast furnace pellet strategy of around $2.5 billion. Since then, we have been able to improve the costs by improving the efficiency of the process. We are also confident that we can improve further on the logistics. That is a major part of the ultimate cost of the pellets. And we are going to be kicking off a process to try and minimize the tax that could be payable on that profitable endeavor. So we're excited about the DR pellet strategy. And as you may have picked up from this morning's announcement, the most recent round of funding, which was like a rights issue to the existing shareholders of the business, was at $550 million pre-money valuation. To put that in context, CoTec owns around 17% of that. So that would imply $95 million US dollars, or around 130 million Canadian dollars, which is almost the entire market cap of the business, and so implying everything else is for free. But you should also note that that was a valuation done at effectively an insider rights issue price, which would be normally at a significant discount to the fair market value of the stock. So we are continuing to progress the business. We have been making pellets, and we'll be announcing the specifications around that in the coming weeks. And we are also increasingly interested in a strategy which encompasses pig iron, and we'll be making an announcement about that and the economics and implication of that in the coming days. Suffice it to say that our 2.6 billion ton deposit has enough material to do both DR pellets and pig iron. And the pig iron element is interesting because the pig iron price, which is over $500 a ton versus the price of the pellets, which is about 150 these days. And so the margins would be significantly higher, and it would be a much more profitable business. So we're excited about both those initiatives, and there's more news to come, as I said, in the coming days and weeks there. Bram, do you want to add on either of those two fronts? Sorry, unmute yourself.
There you go. So if I can just start on the mag iron side, I mean, obviously that investment is now becoming very valuable for CoTec. It's also, we're going to have to decide at some point how we want to deal with that investment. Interestingly enough, CoTec, of course, does have about 90 million Canadian dollars in tax losses. If we should choose at some point to divest from part of that investment, I mean, it could provide significant liquidity to CoTec, and obviously it will also then be covered by the tax losses in CoTec. But that's a decision for another day, and a very good problem to have. And then, of course, on the Lac-Chenin front, the capex is very manageable at the Lac-Chenin front, and the development of earlier this week announcing that we are now at 67% iron content. That's very exciting as well. And that the feasibility study, they should be completed by the middle of next year, and that would then allow us to take that project forward as well. But that project lends itself uniquely to financing at the project level that I think could be fairly simply achieved. So both of those two, like you've mentioned, even Lac-Chenin, you have a valuation of currently $90 million, but with the technology that we can deploy there, together with the material that's falling outside of the study, I think we've always believed that the valuation there will probably sit around the $120 to $130 million mark. So if you add both of these two assets together, you easily get to a 2 multiple just on the market cap of CoTec today, which then gives you essentially the huge upside of Hypermag USA for free. And that's the way that I certainly look at it. Okay.
Thank you, Bram. Yes, I should have added that we will be looking at deploying binding solutions technology at Lac-Chenin in due course, which should allow further uplifts in terms of beneficiation. And also, now that we're making these rounds of announcements around mag iron, the process is going to be moving along there for the debt and equity funding to bring that brownfields development into production in the next 2 years or so. We are also very busy looking at other development opportunities for the deployment of our assets. So we're looking at a number of iron ore assets, tailings. We're also looking at a number of tungsten opportunities. We'll see if those come to fruition in the coming months. But on the CoTec copper front, we are close to finalizing the memorandum of understanding with Copper Intelligence. We hope that that will happen in the next couple of weeks, and then we can start announcing the various tailings opportunities which we have identified in the DRC. But the grade there is 0.8 to 1%, which is probably the highest grade for copper tailings in the world, and quite significantly higher than you're seeing new mines being started with in countries like Chile and elsewhere. So there is more to happen on that front, and we hope by the end of this year to have a more fleshed out CoTec copper story for you as shareholders. So overall, I think we are making progress on all these fronts. There's a lot to be done. We're moving into the phase now where, having funded the sort of heavy lifting and high octane expenditure with CoTec's balance sheet, we can look to raise further capital at the asset level from strategic investors, and that's a major focus over the next couple of months. And we, going back to the opening comments, we remain very enthusiastic and convinced we're onto something that's really got scalability and is opportune for this time. Bram, anything else to add before we take to questions?
Yeah, maybe just briefly, Julian, like you've mentioned, obviously the focus and the strategy has always been to minimize the dilution at the CoTec level and to finance these opportunities at the operational level as much as we can, and that strategy remains unchanged. And to date, it would seem as if we are quite effective in that. So we're quite positive going forward. We really eagle-eyed on the dilution front and keeping our costs under control. But like you said, the CoTec balance sheet remains very strong. So we think that there are good opportunities out there for us to execute on our projects without suffering significant dilution at the CoTec level. Okay. Julian, you're on mute.
Okay. Thank you, Bram. Eugene, do you want to move to the Q&A session then of this update?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, thank you, Julian and Bram. We will now open the session for questions. As a reminder, you can submit questions using the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will take them in the order received. We'll aim to cover as many questions as possible as we have time today. So with that, I will kick off with, there's quite a few questions around Hypermag USA. Hi, Julian. Would the minority stake be at a typical valuation more closely aligned to the one we have in our presentations and not the significantly undervalued share price, which I'm sure will re-rate in due course on this path?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the idea. If you look at our current presentation, we show that we're trading at an enormous discount, whether it be 80 or 90 or 95% the sum of parts, without taking into account dilution. I think there's an opportunity to raise capital at the asset level at a much smaller discount to the NPV, particularly if that acquisition comes with offtake right. So we are looking at both mainstream private equity investors, but also strategic investors and potential customers. So yeah, all about minimizing dilution.
Great. Thanks, Julian. And similarly,
sorry, Eugene, it might be worth adding as well that at the Hypermag level, for instance, we're looking at least 2/3 of project finance as well as working capital facilities. So the equity portion that would be required is limited.
Perfect. Thanks.
The same will apply to Lac Genine, and the same will apply to eventually Mag Iron as well.
Right. Thanks. That's great. And and of course, we can't really comment on specifics, I'm sure, but I think the question more relates to if there's any interests in hypermag from any of the majors. Somebody was asking that this technology seems to be quite complementary to USA rare earths, less common metals. I'm not sure what they're referring to,
Yeah,
but we can mention
Eugene,
that.
I don't think that's something we should be commenting on.
Okay. And another question here, just more broadly, what do we believe the next major catalyst will be in regards to the CoTec share price? Is there any outside chance of an offtake with a major blue chip, or perhaps a major investment by a strategic company or government in this current year?
Well, there is a chance of all of those, and we are engaging with large corporates and and various governments, and we'll see how those discussions evolve. But I think having the ability to finish magnets in the US, as well as show the blocks that have been produced in Europe, puts us in a good position to have those discussions, and that's a very exciting phase for the business, which we are currently engaged in.
Great. And there's another question on the magnets. The question is, how good are the magnets in terms of finish and sintered? Do they have to be approved by every client, or can we, in theory, have a one size fits all per grade, of course?
Well, we can finish the magnets to actually improve their performance slightly with different coatings. But at the moment, we're providing samples to lots of different potential customers. I think over time, as we can announce the various offtake customers, perhaps there'll be a shorter time for testing. But with any new product, particularly something as strategic as magnets, it's understandable that people need to test them for a period of time.
Great. Another question here. Excellent to hear we'll have more than enough feedstock, a major de-risking event. Is this a competitive space, or are we one of the few players who can generate so much value from it?
Well, we are finding, I mean, there are other players, they have different processes, but we are finding that we can, access feedstock, and there are lots of fruitful discussions beyond the relationship we have currently with ILS that are occurring. And we also think that the US government will be taking steps in the coming months to try and increase the supply of feedstock circulating domestically in the US. So, as I said, we are confident if our discussions that are occurring move forward well, that we'll have more than enough feedstock, not only for the first hub at full capacity, but also starting for the second hub to be announced by the end of the year.
Great. We have just moving maybe to mag iron. I think somebody's asking here if there was any updates from the site visits to mag iron that we could share.
We had lots of very good site visits, and there are a lot of discussions ongoing. And when we are ready to announce those agreements, we will do so. But there are lots of potential customers interested, both in the DR pellet strategy and in the pig iron strategy, which we'll announce more details of in the coming days.
Great. And this might have been answered previously during the discussion. I might have missed it, but I think the question here is, what is the current schedule for mag iron regarding a final investment decision and refurbishment? Is the press release from January still the plan?
Regarding mag iron, as I said, we're going to be announcing further updates in the coming week or so, but we have probably slipped a quarter in terms of capital raising. due to the optimization work we've been doing, but it's added considerable value to the project. And so I think it's been worthwhile, making the costs lower, the margins higher, and a more robust project.
Great. Thank you, Julian. Sorry, I'm just trying to skim through and avoid the duplicative questions that have already been answered. Sorry, just give me one moment here. There is a question more broadly going back to if there's still plans to uplist to the TSX or US exchange for CoTec, I imagine.
Bram, do you want to address that since you're closer to that?
Yes, I can. So the plan for the uplisting to the main board in the TSX is still very much on the cards for us. The only reason why we haven't pulled the trigger on that yet is because we've got too many other more important things to execute on. So, but once the operational activity start to slow down a little bit, we will definitely pursue that. We understand that that's a fairly simple process, but everything is fairly time consuming, and we have to prioritize where we spend our time at this point. So that's still very much on the cards. And then on a potential US listing, we'll make a more detailed and proper assessment on that, the cost benefit of that over the coming months as well. But like I said, at this point in time, we have to prioritize our resources and our energy. And right now, the operational execution has to take priority over uplistings of CoTec itself.
Great. Thanks, Bram. We have another question here. Is there any updates that we can share with the EXIM funding?
At this point in time, I don't think that would be appropriate, other than to say that we are very satisfied with the progress we're making there. EXIM Bank, as we know, is a government institution. Government institutions are always moving a little bit slower than your commercial enterprises. But we're very satisfied with where we are. But it would also be inappropriate for me to give any further comment on that, because we have not disclosed that in the public domain yet. But we will do so at the appropriate time.
Okay, great. And I believe that we've covered off all the questions that I can see here. And I do apologize. So I think we'll consider wrapping up here. If there are any questions, I think that haven't been answered, please feel free to reach out to info@cotec.ca. And we'll answer them in due course. Thank you for all your questions. Before we close, I'll hand it back to Julian for any final comments.
Thanks, Eugene. And yeah, as he says, we're here to answer any questions you might have. But just going back to my introductory comments, we're very excited about the strategy. We have been busy on a number of fronts, and I think as you see announcements coming out, you'll see the fruits of those work streams. And we continue to be excited about the execution of the Hypermag USA strategy. I think magnets are becoming only more and more important, and I think our differentiated technology and the strategy around finishing will serve us very well in the context of the Western supply chain. Mag iron is starting to get a very interesting phase, and you'll see in the announcements in the next days how much value there could be, particularly from the pig iron strategy. And Lakshanine is continuing to make progress, and there are lots of other irons in the fire. So keep watching the space, and we think we are building a lot of value for you, the shareholders, and for the board, which continues to have a very significant stake in the business. So thank you for your interest and time, and we'll definitely do another update in the coming months. Appreciate your support.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. If you have any additional questions, like I mentioned, or would like to follow up with the company, please feel free to contact us at info@cotec.ca. This concludes today's webinar. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.